Hi, this is a congratulations to all of the 2026 graduates from the Street Pro. I am Jason Meshnick, CEO of the Street Pro. And I just want to say congratulations, but you've also got terrible timing. And that's not a bad thing because I'll tell you, I've had terrible timing my entire life, as you will see in a second, and you'll make the best of it and you will thrive. I know it. Okay, so how has my timing been terrible? Well, this chart says it all. There's been a recession or some type of economic weakness at nearly every major educational career milestone in my life. The blue line that we're looking at in this chart is the S&P 500. Okay, so that represents the stock market. It also represents how is the economy doing. And in this case, you can see that for most of this period that I've been alive, the stock market has gone up. Now, there have been long periods where it's gone sideways too. Not everything is rosy. And we'll see how that's impacted my life. In the end, it hasn't been bad. So what is the red line, though? The red line is actually the kind of more interesting one. What I've done there is I've taken the S&P 500 at every price, and I've said, how far below are we from the most recent prior high? Okay, so when we look at when I was born, we'll just dive into the chart. I was born and the stock market was down 14% from its all-time high. By the time I was 1 year old, the stock market had declined by 36%. Okay, so from the all-time high. Well, then the market rises up, sets a new high, and by the time I go to kindergarten, the market gets cut in half, down by 48%. I learned to read, the market's down 28%, recovers to a new all-time high, but then I go to middle school, market loses 27%. Not so bad here. I don't really care because, right, I'm in grade school, not a big deal to me, but I go to college. I went to college in 1987, I was a freshman, just as the 1987 crash is happening. I panicked. I ran upstairs to my dorm room, called my dad, and I said, hey, am I going to be able to stay in college? He said, don't worry, we'll figure this out. You will not have to leave college. So luckily, I stayed there, but I ended up paying for it a few years later. When did I graduate? I graduated in 1991 during the first Gulf War and a recession. Stock market falls by 20%. Jobs dried up for people my age. I ended up finding a job about a year later, ended up working on Wall Street, but it was not some dream Wall Street job. I was working as an upstairs runner earning, get this, $14,000 a year. Not a lot of money, even in those days, certainly not a lot today. Use family connections to get that too. And you know what? Sometimes you just have to do what it takes to get that first job, get that foot in the door. Well, I proved myself, ended up with the market improving, ended up getting a job as a trader. That was great, and made a career on Wall Street. Well, in 1998, I decided to apply to get an MBA. I was going to go part-time at night while I continued to work during the day. When that happened, well, my timing was again pretty terrible. I applied just as the literal geniuses at long-term capital management decided to over-leverage themselves and take the entire market down by 19%. 3 years later, I graduated from my MBA program. Stock market had gone from all-time highs to down 49%. That is the dot-com bust that we're talking about. There were no jobs to be had for recent MBA grads at that point. It took me a year to find a job, and it worked out pretty well. I stayed at that job for 19 years. During that time, though, while I was working, I also earned my CMT designation, Chartered Market Technician, which says that I know how to read a stock price chart. Well, I knew how to read the stock price chart well enough to see the stock market fall by 57% during the financial crisis. I wasn't worried about getting a job at that point, but anyone who was looking for a job was not able to find one. Well, you're sensing the pattern now. And so a bunch of years later, when I decided to go teach part-time at the University of Colorado at Boulder, a little thing called the pandemic happened, and the stock market fell by 34%. And then yet again, taking us to where I am today, I left my job that I'd been at for 19 years and joined the street, and the stock market fell by 26%. So why am I telling you this? I'm telling you this because I think you should be optimistic. Yes, things are going to be difficult. AI could make things very challenging in the short term, but I think that you will get through this, and I think that you will have great times and a great career ahead. And congratulations. Best of luck to all of you.